My son had this last night. The drizzling shits.
The drizzling shits.
The drizzling shits. Right out the ass.
Nothing else needs to be said.
Right out the ass. Drizzling shits. Mordecai.
Even though he beat Rey Mysterio once.
We're talking the gimmick, though, brother.
We're talking the gimmick. That's right. We're talking the gimmick.
You're not gonna try and make the Undertaker by just putting him in a bunch of white gear and putting a cross on his chest and being like, "I'm Mordecai." No, you're not, brother. You're the drizzling shits, pal.
Here comes trouble!
It's me. It's that N to the T to the G. Rolling once again with that BTBB Big Trouble Ben Bishop, taking up the whole screen. And you got myself, Nicky the Good, and we are the Meatpop Express. And we have a jam-packed episode for you today. We're doing something pretty damn cool, man, because it is spooky season, man. Yeah, we're binge watching Halloween Havocs. It's Halloween, right? I'm gearing up to go trick-or-treating in my neighborhood, up and down the block, getting all of the candy from my kids, because there's a dad tax on that. But for today, Ben, could you tell these people what we're going to be getting into a little bit?
So what we're doing, get out the puffy vests, the pumpkin spice lattes. We ain't doing the candy because, we don't do sugar on the old Meatpop Express. No. But you can have all the sugar you want, Marks. But listen, today, what we're doing is we are going to rank. We are going to tier the top scary/horror gimmicks of all time in professional wrestling. Now, folks, want to make sure we give you this caveat. We will not be doing modern gimmicks. No modern gimmicks. It's when we were kids and we were watching some of our developmental years of the horror gimmicks that we watched and maybe we were a little scared of, or maybe we just thought we're 100% campy, because there's a lot of that in professional wrestling. So we're going to get into all the different types of gimmicks that we saw. We got about 37 gimmicks to go through in wrestling. So we're going to get rolling with a lot of these. Really good ones, some that will give you that nostalgia bomb that you'll remember either in a good way or a bad way. But what would be wrestling without some of these horror gimmicks of all time?
It'd be shitty, man. That's what it would be, because everyone likes being scared, man. And
sure
speaking
do.
of it, so listen, this is what we're going to do. So Ben is going to be sharing his screen here, right? We're going to be doing a little bit of share screen, and you're going to see the tiering, right? So if you're watching on YouTube right now, you're actually going to see us tiering this live in person. No other podcast is giving this to you, right? No other wrestling podcast is doing this. They're recapping the shows that happened this week, not us. We're going to go through the hottest and best Halloween spooky ass gimmicks of all time, brother. So Ben, share that damn screen and kick us off.
Share the screen. Here we go. All right, Nicky, you see it?
I see it, man, live and in color. Here we go.
We're ready to go. All right, so let's go through the categories first. Obviously, the top category, good shit, pal. That's a good gimmick. That is the number. That is the best compliment you can get in professional wrestling. Then through it, we got main event, we got mid card, we got pre-show, and we got the Shockmaster tier. We gotta give love. We gotta give love to the Shockmaster, Ari and Fred Ottman, and then of course the drizzling shits tier.
The drizzling shits,
which is the bottom. And I want to say this, another caveat: we are not talking about the person as a wrestler. We are talking about the gimmick. It is all about the gimmick, because that's what matters.
Yeah, so for the record, we're not talking about your work rate. We don't care about how entertaining you were or not entertaining. We're not interested in that. We're strictly talking the gimmicks. So if you're a wrestler and you listen to this podcast, which you should be doing already, this ain't the time to be offended, pal, because we ain't offended. We're just entertaining. So, Ben, let's kick it off.
All right, let's start out with number one. I want to start out with, again, we aren't doing modern gimmicks, but we want to give respect to this individual. We're going to start out with The Fiend. Nick, where are we putting The Fiend gimmick of all time? I got my opinion. Where do you put him for yours? I'm
putting the Fiend gimmick in the old mid-card for me.
Okay.
I think it's a great gimmick, but I do think that in terms of where I think that they almost pumped the brakes on it a little bit by getting a little bit too theatric-y.
Okay.
Right? I thought it was a little bit too much over the top at times, in particular with the stuff that they did in the ring. I think if they just humanized it just a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. Because Bray himself was already, of course, he's a horror character in himself, right? That's what he was. And I think it was a great game. When he made the entrance as the Fiend for the first time, that was some of the most awesome shit ever. Mm-hmm. But when we started getting into we're gonna burn you alive in the ring, it got a little bit too much where my disbelief wasn't suspended because I was like, well, this just isn't possible. Right, this just isn't possible. So that's how I feel about it.
I like it. I probably would have. I think I was going between main event and mid card, but you made a really good point for mid card. I think when it first started, it was good shit. Then it kind of trickled down, lost some esteem a little bit. But yeah, I'm gonna put him in the mid card. Okay, starting out there. All right, going next, we have Undertaker, possibly one of the greatest horror gimmicks of all time.
I would say it's the
gimmicks of all time.
I would say it's the greatest gimmick of all time. I think it's good. That is a good shit, pal.
Yeah.
Little story for you, Ben. So obviously, I'm older than you, right? Mm-hmm. Shorter but older. And when I was a little mark, and the WWE had the In Your House video game, right? And in that game, you were able to play the theme music. Well, as a little mark, I legitimately thought the Undertaker was real. In real life, and I thought there was a dead person walking amongst us that was putting people into body bags. My brother and his friends would lock me in the closet in the basement, and if you hovered over the player, they would play the theme song. So they would throw me in the closet, lock me in there, and then put the Undertaker's theme song. And I swear to you, man, I thought the Undertaker was coming to put me in a body bag. That's what I thought was happening. I was scared shitless when this dude came into the World Wrestling Federation. Legitimately thought there was a dead person among us. That's good shit, pal. It's the greatest gimmick of all
just
time.
That story alone has to be good shit, pal. The fact that it made you feel like that. So, folks, Undertaker in the good shit, pal tier, which is the top tier. Okay, this was a favorite of Nick's, so we're going next. We are going to go with the Yeti. The WCW Yeti debuted in 1995. Ron Rice was who portrayed the Yeti.
Ron Reese, right?
Ron Reese, thank you. Tall guy, so we respect.
Big bastard.
Tall guy. Dungeon of Doom's insurance policy when he first came out. Introduced in a frozen block of ice because obviously it's professional wrestling. But he ended up just being a mummy. He then became a ninja with no reason behind it. So he went from a mummy to a ninja, and there was absolutely no reason behind it. So Nick, what do you think of Ron Reese as the Yeti?
That's a shock master tier for me.
That's a shock master.
Shock master.
Okay, shock master. So not the drizzling shits, but
not the drizzling shits yet, because. And here's why. Because it's literally because of one man, and it's Tony Schiavone. So the Yeti. So that the way that he would call his name keeps him out of the drizzling shits, because whether or not it was the drizzling shits, it's a moment in time that we all remember. Mm-hmm. And the Shockmaster is a moment in time that we all remember. Gimmick, drizzling shits, right? A sparkled stormtrooper mask, right? Drizzling shits. But it's a moment in time that lives in wrestling lore, and that's why I'm putting it in the Shockmaster tier.
Okay, Shockmaster tier, the Yeti from WCW. We're going next. We're going with Mordecai. Mordecai debuted in 2004. He was a religious zealot type of character. Wanted to rid the world of sin. In his debut, he did defeat Scotty 2 Hotty, and he has a win over Rey Mysterio, but was shortly sent back to OVW for more training in 2004. So Mordecai, I'll give my opinion on Mordecai. I think a religious character is good, but he didn't last very long. He did get a win over Rey. So not Shockmaster tier, at best pre-show tier, but I think we're talking. I think I know where you're getting at, Nick, with this one, with your. If you listen on audio, you can't really see his mannerisms, but I think I know where Nick's going with Mordecai.
Not my brother, Jesus Christ. My son had this last night. The drizzling shits.
The drizzling shits.
The drizzling shits. Right out the ass.
Nothing else needs to be said.
Right out the ass, drizzling shits, Mordecai.
Even though he beat Rey Mysterio once.
We're talking the gimmick, though, brother.
We're talking the gimmick. That's right. We're talking the gimmick.
You're not going to try and make The Undertaker by just putting him in a bunch of white gear and putting a cross on his chest and being like, I'm Mordecai. No, you're not, brother. You're the drizzling shits, pal.
All right, so Mordecai in the drizzling shits tier, folks. That is the bottom tier. All right, Jake Roberts up next. Jake Roberts. Now, some people wouldn't think of him as really a horror character, but just the way he spoke. Obviously, people are afraid of snakes. He spoke in that monotone, that very deep, creepy voice. a lot of people consider him a horror, scary character in wrestling lore. So, as the character, Jake the Snake Roberts, in the 90s when he really was getting into his character more and, being a little bit creepier, getting more of that sports entertainment aspect. Nick, where would you put Jake Roberts?
I'd put Jake Roberts in the main event tier.
I like that. Yep.
I don't think that he has enough in the. I guess, Jake Roberts is saying like this is an actual man, right? Like Jake is a name.
Yeah.
Like if his name was the Snake, and he was, maybe I would say good shit pal. Obviously, it wouldn't be nearly as great as Jake the Snake Roberts, right? But the reality is that it's not. He wasn't just a gimmick; he was the man, which is even more creepier. But if we're talking strictly horror stuff like Halloween, I'm putting a main event. But listen, that work he did as a heel, man, put shivers down your spine.
Some people wouldn't say there'd be a Stone Cold without a Jake Roberts, right?
I mean,
there wouldn't be Austin 316 without Jake Roberts.
There would not be. We know that for a fact. Austin has done that interview 30,000 times. So if you don't know the story by now about how he said Austin 316, I'm not even going to spoil it because it just means that you don't even fucking like wrestling.
No, exactly. So, yes, all right. So I like that Jake Roberts main event here. Remember, we're going over spooky gimmicks. Jake Roberts, wrestler, good shit, pal. I'd put him there, as overall wrestler. But for the gimmick, we'll go main event. All right. Nick, I had no idea when I was looking this up it was the same exact person. But we're going with Kevin Thorne next, who was Mordecai, but came back as Kevin Thorne. So this guy loves spooky gimmicks. Another vampire character in wrestling. Defeated Little Guido in his debut. He was part of that ECW WWE roster. And one of the all-time worst stables, the New Breed. He was part of that stable. Nick, where are we putting Kevin Thorne? The former Mordecai.
Same fucking guy drizzling shits. Kevin Thorne sucks. So does Mordecai. The same guy. They both suck.
Same exact
drizzling
guy.
shits.
Listen,
listen, the guy. I'm sure he's a good dude. Sure, fine person. Drizzling shits.
Drizzling shit gimmick. Okay. Sticking with the vampires. Next one, we're going with Gangrel. Gangrel, the Brood, 97-ish when he kind of started with Edge and Christian, and they had that awesome entrance, one of the best all-time theme songs. Obviously, Vampire came out with the goblet, with the blood, all that good stuff. I dressed up as Gangrel for Halloween one year. I forgot what year. It might have been like 98, 99-ish.
6'12" vampire.
6'12" vampire. Well, not then. When I was like 8, I was probably Nick's size when I was 8.
You're probably taller, brother.
I think I might have been. So Gangrel, where are we gonna put Gangrel as the vampire gimmick that he was for spooky gimmicks?
I mean, I think we'll be on the same page. Where are you putting it, Ben?
I was gonna put a main event. I don't know. I think just overall people remembering the gimmick. He hasn't been on TV. People remember Gangrel. Where would you?
I was gonna say good shit, pal.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the guy came out from underneath fire. Like,
true. It was a great entrance.
He was the most realistic vampire character ever.
We've had a lot of them.
You could not have a more realistic vampire. He actually lived the gimmick.
He did.
If you were to run into Gangrel right now on the street, what are the chances he has fangs in his mouth?
There's a good chance. I've ran into Gangrel on a few shows, and he still lives the gimmick.
Listen, Fangin' and Bangin' had. You're thinking as a kid that he has blood in the what do they call those things? The chasel,
the goblet, the goblet chalice. Yeah,
the goblet. He's spitting. He's before he starts a match, he spits blood into the air, and he wrestles with this stained white shirt. He came out from underneath flames, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, to me, I'm putting him as good shit, pal.
All
but
right.
Ben,
I like it.
What do you think?
You know what?
You don't have to.
No, but you convinced me. I think that just the overall gimmick. Again, we're going by gimmick. I got to remember.
What is every kid? What is one of the things that kids dress up as for Halloween?
They're vampires.
Vampires.
And he was the vampire.
He's probably, other than Blade, he's probably the most famous vampire on the face of the earth.
I think so. Yeah, you go Dracula, Blade, and then you go Gangrel.
Fuck Dracula.
Jobber. All right, the next one we are going with the Boogeyman. So the Boogeyman's an interesting one because he is brought back almost every year. Almost every year, he's somehow going to pop up around this time. We haven't seen him yet, surprisingly, but he's on that Legends contract. We know we're going to see him. I kind of have an idea where I'm going to put him. Honestly, I think I'm putting him Shockmaster tier. I think Boogeyman's got that kind of that allure, where it's like no one ever remembers any of his matches, but you're going to remember Boogeyman. You got to remember him.
Boogeyman is a character that you don't question why he's putting worms in his mouth and eating them. And if you're like, why is this guy doing that? Like, it's just wrestling. Like, you're really doing that? Like, he's the actual Boogeyman.
Yep. So I think we know that. So Shockmaster tier.
Shockmaster tier.
We're going with him. And up next, sticking on the same wavelength here, the Shockmaster. And I think we know where he's going.
Shockmaster tier.
One of the best gimmicks, one of the best entrances of all time. The debuts, the Shockmaster. Folks, if you haven't ever seen that video, please go watch it right now. But after the podcast. All right, we got up next, and I know where I'm putting this guy, but we got Mankind. We got the original Mankind character, not the T-shirt or not the tie and the button-down shirt. We're going with the original Mankind when he first debuted around '96 era, feuding with the Undertaker. That's who I have up next. So Nick, where would you put Mankind?
I was petrified of
Me
Mankind.
too. Yep, I already know.
When he debuted against Bob Holly, and he sunk in the mandible claw, and Bob Holly was foaming from the mouth.
Yep.
After I just watched vignettes of this guy petting a fucking rat in
Jim
a
Cornette's
dark,
rat. If you listen to that.
George.
That was his pet.
George,
Yep.
petting a fucking rat named George in a fucking cellar.
Mm-hmm.
And just first of all, Mick Foley's ability to promo as Mankind, like,
oh yeah,
I would say Mankind, those promos are up there amongst the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know what this guy was. Mm-hmm. And that's what was so damn scary. Like, it was my introduction to like derangement.
Yeah.
Like, I never heard the word deranged used until Mankind was on my television screen.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and there's been a lot of deranged characters over the years. Like, in wrestling, it seems to attract the deranged type character, and people are always kind of into that character, but no one did it better than Mick Foley. So, I mean, I put him at good shit, pal.
He didn't have a fucking ear. And
No.
and I was young enough where I didn't know really who Cactus Jack was.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not have that fucking Meltzer, like, this is Mick Foley. I didn't have any of that.
Mm-hmm.
He just popped on my screen one day and was making Bob Holly, who was a race car driver, foam Sparky Plug, foam from the mouth. I've never seen a human being foam from the mouth going convulsions in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The mandible claw itself, I'd never seen that before.
Folks, this is pre-Sacco too, so just so you know, this was just, it wasn't cartoony. It wasn't cartoony by any means. He was very horror-based.
I lived this shit. Like, I was of age where, like, I was having nightmares thinking about Mankind breaking into my basement and just deranging my family.
Yep.
Like, that's what I was thinking was going to happen.
So I think we're on the same page. Good shit, pal.
Yep.
Tier. Yep. Top tier for Mankind.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on next, we have Papa Shango. Papa Shango had this guy, Charles Wright. He had a ton of gimmicks through the years. He had Godfather. How
do you pronounce his name? How do
Papa
you pronounce
Shango. What do you think it was? Papa Shango?
It's Papa Shango.
Shango, whatever. Shango, whatever.
You're gonna catch some heat for that, Ben.
Shango.
You're gonna catch heat. I might have to edit that out.
Oh, no. We keep everything. We're gonna keep everything.
Papa Shango. No.
Yeah. Shango. Sorry, Papa Shango.
Papa Shango.
Papa
Shango. Like that.
So what do you think? Voodoo. You got a voodoo doctor, a witch doctor.
Yeah.
Where are you putting him?
I'm going to say, so I was thinking main event, but I'm going to put him in the mid card because it was such a dumb, stupid gimmick Like,
He made it work. He made it work for a bit.
oh, he made it work like $1 million. But Papa Shango, between being super late at WrestleMania 8, like, I don't know what you were doing in the back. Were you casting some spells that you just weren't there on time and missed your cue, brother? I don't know. But he did have a few famous things with the Ultimate Warrior, making him have the black ooze, come from the top of his forehead and stuff. He was making him have. He looked like he had appendicitis. He looked like he gave the Ultimate Warrior appendicitis. He just grasped it. But I mean, it's a voodoo doctor at the end of the day. The face mask, like or the face paint, like all right, like that's fine. But Papa Shango, he didn't really scare me as much. I was like, I don't know. Even as a kid, I was like, I don't know. Like.
No, I feel that. I think this guy made a lot of silly gimmicks work. He did the black militant gimmick. He did the witch doctor. He did a pimp. He did a guy trying to revise himself around being a pimp and trying to absolve all of his past sins, and as the good father. But yeah, I think he's where he should be, mid card. I like that for that gimmick. All right, moving on to one people remember, Nails. Nails also had gimmicks, the prisoner and the convict. So he didn't really shy away from this gimmick. He wrestled Bret Hart a few times. He had a short feud with the Ultimate Warrior back in like 92, 93 era. Nick, where are you putting Nails? Big guy.
Listen, Nails scared me a little bit as a kid, but I'm putting him in the pre-show. Well, listen, man, you're just a felon, man. It was
that time of occupational gimmicks. And
you're a piece of shit. Okay, you committed some crimes, but you're not scaring me, because chances are you're gonna get picked up again. You're gonna commit another crime. You're gonna find yourself in the clink, and I'm not gonna have to worry.
And I mean, it was a perfect at the time, of the campy WWE early '90s. He was going against Big Boss Man, at the warden at a prison. So he obviously had to have a prisoner. So it worked. It worked for a little bit. So yeah, I like pre-show for that. I think I wouldn't say drizzle and shits. I would definitely give him the pre-show. So pre-show tier for Nails. Moving on, and Nick, you have is that the No Holds Barred poster?
I do.
No Holds Barred. We got Zeus, the human wrecking machine from No Holds Barred, debuted assaulting Hogan and before a WWF title match, but he ended up losing to Hogan in a steel cage. Short stint, I think late 80s for Zeus coming out. Where are we putting Zeus on an all-time gimmick?
I'm putting Zeus. I'm still putting Zeus in the pre-show.
Yep.
He was scary. But he was in he was more of a realistic wrestler character to me. I wasn't actually scared of Zeus. I was just like, how is Hulk Hogan actually going to beat this guy?
Of course. He had some believability to him.
That's the vibe I had around Zeus. It wasn't so much I was scared of him. I was more concerned for Hulk Hogan.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, obviously, No Holds Barred. We're both fans of the movie. So Zeus had a little bit of shine behind him. So you got to give him some respect, even though he had a short stint. Pre-show's a good spot for him. And when you're, doing anything with Hogan in the late 80s, obviously you gotta give him some respect. Doink the Clown next up. Doink the Clown. Wrestling's really the clown everyone's gonna remember, most notorious clown. But early days of Doink the Clown, folks, if you do remember this, Doink was kind of a scary character. He wasn't the happy-go-lucky circus character. He was kind of a demented clown. And if you're afraid of clowns, this was the perfect. This was the character that probably got you a little freaked out. So, I'll give as for gimmicks, I would put Doink in the main event. I would put
100% main event. I agree. I'm not scared of clowns, so I'm not gonna put him in Good Shit Pal, because he really just didn't scare me as much. He wasn't as much horror for me, but the work behind making a clown credible in a wrestling ring. I mean, he's one of the most iconic characters ever of all time. It's a main event character. The evil Doink was certainly something that just kind of creeped you out. Yeah. It didn't scare me, but it creeps me out.
Because many people are afraid of clowns. So I mean that's a big phobia. Chlorophobia. We just did trivia last night. And that was one of the questions. I think you gotta put Doink in the main event. I mean, even if he wasn't the main event wrestler, again, folks, we're doing gimmicks, and everyone knows Doink the Clown. Everyone knows Doink.
Dun,
So.
dun, 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 dun,
Yep, yeah, the creepy circus music. Oh yeah, nope. So Doink main event here. Coming up next with the ECW Zombie. The ECW Zombie. I mean, this guy, debut episode of ECW WE. He lost to the Sandman, and that was kind of it for the ECW Zombie.
Drizzling shits. Let's move on.
By a goddamn mile. Okay, Kevin Sullivan, interesting one. Next, Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster. Again, not someone that you would look at and be afraid of, but he did have those creepy vignettes. He had the dungeon of doom, or whatever they called it, the dungeon of doom. His cast of characters, misfits. Where would you put Kevin Sullivan?
Kevin Sullivan didn't fucking scare me.
Didn't scare you. Okay.
Nah, I mean, he's in between.
I think
he's
I would put him in the
mid-card.
pre-show, though.
He's mid-card pre-show, yeah.
Yeah.
I was not going to say drizzling shits at all.
No.
Kevin Sullivan's he's a solid promo, and he definitely lived the gimmick for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it's when the Taskmaster to me was more of a nickname than an actual like character. So.
Yeah.
But I would say pre-show, definitely worthy of, he has some notoriety. But I would say the people that were in his faction were a little bit more of the show than him.
I think so too. I think so. Yeah. So I think we'll go. I'm going pre-show with Kevin Sullivan. I think that's a good spot for him when it comes to creepy, scary characters. All right. Next up, I think we know we're going to put this guy. We have Kane up next. One of the greatest debuts of all time. Probably one of the most notorious, scary characters of all time. Best backstory, best storyline of all time. Nick, consensus,
it's good
shit, pal.
I mean, listen, like, Kane is the most horror movie inspired monster character ever in wrestling. I would even say more than The Undertaker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
like
horror movie. Yeah,
like he is straight up, and if you've watched interviews with Glenn Jacobs, Kane before, Michael Myers, like he basically watched Michael Myers, and like that's what Kane was based off of, right? Like he says he got the little thing from his dog, the little thing with the turn head, and Michael Myers did the same thing in the Halloween stuff. Kane to me is the ultimate Halloween character. And then what he did with that character is something that, no one probably expected, but I'm also not surprised given, how great that backstory was. Arguably a top 2 story of all time in professional wrestling.
And kids were afraid of Kane. Kids dressed up as Kane. People will always remember Kane. There's no question. Obviously, good shit, pal. We didn't even have to have too much of a discussion on that one. All right, next interesting character here, Waylon Mercy, also known as Dan Spivey. He was one part of the Skyscrapers with Sid back in the day, but he started this character around 95, 96-ish. Ton of creepy vignettes. He had the Max Cady and the Cape Fear gimmick, if you remember that. Won a bunch of squash matches. Again, our guy Bob Holly, 1, 2, 3 Kid. He did lose to Savio Vega, and he did have a win over Diesel by countout. But he had a win over Diesel. But he did have to leave wrestling due to injuries in like 95, 96. So I love these vignettes. I love the Waylon Mercy vignettes. A lot of people say that the Bray Wyatt, the cult leader, swamp leader, Bray Wyatt character was loosely also based off Waylon Mercy, Max Cady, and Cape Fear. So as a gimmick, unfortunately, it wasn't fleshed out enough. It didn't have enough time. I would put it in mid card.
I'd put it in mid card. It was ahead of its time, and it was the first time I was exposed to what a cult leader was as a kid.
And he had that. I love when he would come. He came out, watched a lot of the old. Like there's not much, but you saw he'd come out as like a Southern gentleman, and he'd be shaking hands, smiling, and it was even creepier. Because again, in the ring, he'd be sadistic, and he had a great character. Just unfortunately, it was later in his career, and he was injured, so he couldn't keep it up. And
he was beyond his time because his character was something that adults would understand.
Exactly.
As a kid, you didn't understand him, and I didn't really get it. You knew something was off there, but if for an adolescent mind, you really didn't kind of understand what this guy was all about. But if you were an adult, like if we were watching the Waylon Mercy character right now with all we know about mental health and what we experience in day-to-day culture, this guy would fit in I hate saying perfectly, but his character would make sense for modern events.
As Bray Wyatt did when he came up in, in 2013, 14, of course. Yeah.
We talked about him earlier, but like I was a Bray guy. Like,
yeah.
Bray Wyatt to me is one of my favorite characters ever because I thought that he just fit modern day culture so perfectly. But Waylon Mercy was doing that. Like he was almost foreshadowing like what we know today as mental health, schizophrenia, like all those bipolar, like Jekyll and Hyde type shit, man. And some
of the best characters were based off movie characters.
He was a
Razor
big
Ramon.
dude too.
Yeah,
like
he was
when he got in the ring, he was fucking intimidating because you're like, he's not just talking. Like he gets in the ring, he's bigger than his fucking guy, and he wasn't jacked. It was just like, this guy's dangerous. That's
I like to watch. I like to watch some Dan Spivey too because he's a little shorter than me, but he was a big guy in wrestling. Obviously, he was at the Skyscrapers with Sid. Good wrestler. But again, we're not ranking that right now. But I like it. I think mid card's perfect for Waylon Mercy. Unfortunately, we didn't get enough of it. Just didn't get enough.
We did not. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to next, we have Vampiro. Vampiro of WCW fame. Had some awesome. Had a good rivalry with Sting. He was part of the New Blood. Remember I like the New Blood. I don't care what anybody says. I could tell you.
If you mentioned the New Blood more than twice on a show,
that was the New Breed. The New Breed was bad.
Shit, I throw them together. Same thing.
The New Breed was bad, but no, the New Blood with Russo, Bischoff, Vampiro was part of that. Another vampire gimmick. Where would you put Vampiro?
I don't want to disrespect the guy. I'll put him in the pre-show. I don't really have, you may put him in the mid card.
I can make an exception, but again, he's a guy with face paint in WCW.
He got me more of like a rock star. I felt like he was more of like a rocker than he was a vampire. Like he really he was named Vampiro, but I'm like, other than your face paint, why are you a Vampiro?
Yeah, and again, there was already a guy with face paint in WCW.
Yeah,
didn't he roll around with ICP though? That ICP might have made him mid card though. He did have some. We'll keep him in the pre-show, but I think I would make a case for mid card.
You could toss him in. You could toss him into the mid card.
You know what? I think I'm going to make an executive decision.
There we go. Executive decision. Yeah, you're
I like
the
it.
Show.
I like it. I think we're going to put him in the mid card because of rolling around with ICP. He had the Juggalo thing going. They're pretty fucking scary, to be honest. So we'll give him mid card. All right, moving on. We got Sting. Sting, obviously an icon, but we're going horror, scary type characters. Obviously inspired by The Crow. Where would you put Sting as a horror character?
If it's Crow, I'm putting Good Ship Pal. If we're talking about the Crow Sting, I'm putting Good Ship Pal because
we are. We're not talking about Surfer Sting.
Like this guy was in the rafters and he didn't speak for an entire year.
Yep.
Was I scared? No, because I knew Sting was a good guy. But at the time, he's still like, what is his deal? But I mean, that's a Halloween.
That's a Halloween.
Yep. The Crow.
Absolutely.
And I love the Crow movies too.
And I think it's a top 5 gimmick of all time.
Sting, Crow Sting specifically.
Crow Sting specifically.
Like that 1997 like block. What is a character that just like it was like a looming thing just that loomed over WCW without having to do anything. And that's the beauty of pro wrestling. You don't have to talk. You just have to stand in the rafters every night. Imagine Sting's day. It's like, hey, what are you going to do tonight? You're going to go in the rafters around, 8:57, stare, and then
stare the
call
camera
it a day
pandy a few times. Yep.
And take your 6 figs, your 7 figs, whatever.
Awesome theme song, too. Creepy theme song. Had it. Yeah, so now that's an easy one, too. Good shit, pal, for the Stinger. Crow Sting. All right, we're going from the top all the way to the bottom here with Black Blood. Next, Black Blood, the Executioner gimmick. He'd do a top rope throat chop drop as his finisher. Only lasted really a few shows. So, Nick, I think I know where I'm putting Black Blood as a character.
I'll tell you, never heard of this motherfucker. Throw him in the drizzling shits.
The drizzling shits. Yep, Black Blood, the Executioner. Oh, man, we just executed
Let me
his
take
gimmick.
the next one real quick as well.
You go ahead.
Kizarny. Okay, so I'm going to read Ben's notes here, but not even the full notes. I'm just going to read the last sentence on Ben's notes here. Only lasted 5 months before being released. Kizarny's doing the drizzling shit.
All respect to Sid Bodie, by the way. It was Sid. I think the character had something behind it. I think it could have worked. I think just maybe it was the wrong timing. All respect to Sid Bodie. He's a good guy. But yeah, I think the character just didn't work.
No, because they tried to it was like they were fucking with him. Like, oh, you're gonna be a carny pro wrestler.
He's doing the carny talk. Yeah.
And who got that? Only people that fucking know.
Exactly.
What he's doing.
It was very inside baseball.
And again, nothing against the guy, but they screwed you, man. Kizarny?
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Moving next, Nick, I know you have a personal story about it, but so Psycho Sid, I know that you were
love Psycho Sid. Fucking love Psycho Sid. Probably in my top 10 of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Same.
Now that's gonna it's my love for Sid is not gonna be reflected in where we rank them, because we're talking about horror movies and
scary gimmick
costume, right? But let me just tell you, 1996 Survivor Series, I'm a little Mark. My dad got us tickets. We were up in the rafters, right, at the Garden. And man, for some reason, that's a distinct time when pro wrestling started to change, where you were rooting for the heel. Mm-hmm. And what happened that night was HBK came to the ring and he got his ass booed. And that old son of a bitch, Jose Lothario, we booed your ass out of the Garden. And then Sid came to the ring and listen, you go on
doing the fist bumps.
You search for GIFs online. You search for a GIF. That Sid entrance, boom, just dude, he was probably breaking people's. He was smashing people's fists with pounds so hard, and I was just so jacked up as a little Mark. Just boom, who's the man? And you would look at Sid and he'd be like, "Who's the man? Who's the man?" And then the Sid with the fucking the pyro with just the easy the basic
Sid,
the Sid,
mm-hmm.
and it just lit up. And who's the man? And at the end of the night, after he beat everyone, I remember just sitting there as a little Mark, my dad just ashamed of me and my brother as he was standing in the rafters with our fists just like this, who's the man? Sid's the fucking man, and he's the master and the ruler of the world.
But I knew that. I knew that
for
would
this
tug
list, man, I'll
there.
put him in. I don't know. Put him mid card.
I think so too. I don't think he's. I mean, looking at a guy like Sid, nobody really looked like that at his size at that time. He wasn't the athlete of Brock Lesnar, but he looked like a Brock Lesnar compared to everybody else. The guy was massive. He was jacked up, and he had all the facial expressions. And yeah, but I think as a horror scary character, I think mid card's the perft place for.
And one thing I loved about Sid is that he sold the power bomb too. Mm-hmm. he made sure you knew once the power bomb hits, it's over. And I always appreciated that.
The master of the power bomb.
He had a cool choke slam too for a guy who wasn't. He had a cool choke slam. The way he did it, it looked different than everyone else's. You know.
Mm-hmm. No, we love Sid. We're very pro Sid on this podcast. Okay, moving on. We have Festus, also known as Luke Gallows nowadays. Started as Festus, a weird gimmick, but kind of like that scary what's his name from Mice and Men?
Lenny.
Lenny, kind of that Lenny gimmick. Something not all there. Not all that. Just so I don't know. It was more cartoony to me than it was scary.
I mean, I'm gonna put him in the Shockmaster tier.
I think so. I think people remember Festus now pretty well. Follows Luke Gallows for the rest of his career. I think that's a good place for him. I think he's always going to be known as Festus. People are going to remember Festus. All right, that's all we need to talk about Festus. All right, well, before he became one of the greatest horror characters of all time, Glenn Jacobs was the dentist, the first dentist character in wrestling. Not Britt Baker. She wasn't the first. The first was Jerry Lawler's dentist, Isaac Yankem, DDS. Isaac Yankem with the horrible teeth, with the hair. He had the whole dentistry, he had the vignettes. Isaac Yankem's kind of iconic, I think, because Glenn Jacobs made Kane iconic.
I fucking loved Isaac Yankem.
I did too. I did too.
He hates it. He hates it, and I think that's why people say it sucked. Yeah. I thought he did a fucking great job of convincing me that this 6'10", 6'9" dentist with bad teeth is just obsessed with drilling people and just fucking up their teeth.
I think people are afraid of the dentist too. So people are afraid of the dentist, and you got.
I get it. I get it. For
get
that time, I get it, and I believed it too.
I'm putting it in the main event.
Yeah,
I
fuck
think
it. Throw it in the main event.
I'm putting him in the main event, Isaac Yankum. Even though he might not like it, we
He'll
like
hate
it.
He'll
we
hate
like
it.
it.
I love it,
We
Glenn.
love
I
it.
fucking love it.
Here's one- Go ahead.
You met Kane, obviously,
Oh, yeah,
a
of
few
course.
times.
Taller
You know,
than
you're
Kane.
taller than
Taller
him.
than
I
Kane.
know, yeah, I'm
Everyone
shorter
knows.
than him. But I met him at the old stool. He was in his suit, you know, just doing some
course.
rounds. And he shook my
Politicking.
hand. His fucking hand
Oh,
is
it's
like
enormous.
a
It's
brick. It's a
insane.
fucking brick, dude. Yeah, they basically just brought him over to me and was like, "Hey, this is the wrestling guy," and I was like, "Hey, Kane." like I didn't even know he was there. I turned to my left, like, "Yo, Nick." I was like, "What's up?" They're like, "Yo, this is Kane." I was like, "Yeah, you gonna fucking tell me?" You
Tell me. I know, brother. I know. All right, Nick. Here's a favorite of yours, Damien Demento.
Yep, you know Damien Demento because if
I'll
you
let you
watch,
take
if you go and you watch the first episode of Monday Night Raw, that's the first and last time you ever fucking remember Damien Demento. This guy sucked. The gimmick sucked. He's the drizzling shits. Damien Demento with one of the if you put a name in a name generator online and you're like, oh, like what are the characteristics like? Spooky, bad guy, evil. Like Damien Demento is going to be the name that came. The alliteration.
That's like an AI generator.
The D&D dude got squashed like a motherfucker. Like it was a rap. I think by Taker too, right? Like he beat Taker.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Damien Demento, man, first time, long time, last time you ever heard of him was in the opening of Monday Night Raw in I think 1993.
It's like, yeah.
Yep, drizzling shits, gimmick sucked. Call it a day.
All right, we got 97. WCW really liked Mortal Kombat. You know, they want to do a lot of Mortal Kombat. We had Glacier, but we also had Wrath and Mortis, Brian Clark and Chris Kanyon, who were Wrath and Mortis for a bit. Basically Mortal Kombat-ish type characters. If you liked Mortal Kombat a lot, I like Mortal Kombat. I wasn't really afraid of it. But I don't want to. I think they dressed it up real nice. They made the most of it. I would put them pre-show.
Yep,
Wrath and Mortis.
definitely. I love these characters. It was based off Mortal Kombat, so it wasn't like I was not scared of these guys. At times, I questioned why they were dressed like that, but like there was no way I thought a human being named Wrath like that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, is there a human being named Wrath really running around right now?
No,
but I thought Undertaker was, but I didn't think Wrath was. I was a little bit older, obviously, but I mean, they were badass though.
They were. Brian Clark, big guy. Chris Kanyon was great. So I mean, they made the most of it.
Let me say something, man. I love Chris Kanyon.
Me too.
He was one of my favorites. You know,
Who better?
And it really sucks, you know, because he was so fucking talented, man. And the who better than Kanyon, man. I just love that.
I loved the stable, the Jersey connection was the Jersey.
It really
DDP and Bam Bam.
It was really fucking good, man. And he's one that guy just it left us too early.
Unfortunately,
he was fucking awesome.
He was. All right. Well, before we had Psycho Sid, he was Lord Humongous. Jimmy Hart's monster, played by Mike Starks, then played by Sid. So, Lord Humongous, where would you? I don't even think I'm gonna ask you, but judging by your reaction, Nick.
I mean, it's
Lord
Humongous.
Humongous. What a name, Lord Humongous.
Like, who the fuck? Like, why? This is a terrible name. You can't get past that name.
No, you really can't.
Lord Humongous. Like, what are you? What? Like, you might as well. What are you? A porn star? like that's basically what he was. That's a porn star name. That's a porn star gimmick. Like Val Venus. Like before they gave him the name, he had like the same way Austin had like Ice Dagger and Fang McFrost. There was a few names there, and it was Lord Humongous was one of them, and that's the one they went with for that day.
Yeah, it looks like he has like the demolition gimmick, like the S&M gimmick, and he's got like a weird mask. I don't know, pretty bad. We're happy Sid got away from that and became who he was. All right, Goldust is next. Not exact. It depends on what you're afraid of, because he had that cinephile the weird vignettes. It was super creepy.
Androgynous is the word you're looking for.
Androgynous. There you go. That's the word of the day, folks. Goldust. I mean, again, I gotta put Goldust in the main event tier. I would say
100% main event tier,
and teetering on good shit, pal, because He'll be remembered forever. Even people see Dustin Rhodes
I
nowadays.
think we
like,
could
oh, is
say.
that Goldust?
I think we could put it in good shit, pal.
I think so,
it's
too.
iconic enough that you can do that because, first of all, he was a bad guy, and I remember seeing Goldust for the first time, being like, "This doesn't make any sense," but then like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I was completely bought in. And it was scary as fuck. When he ripped first of all, I was so stupid as a kid, as a dumb mark. I didn't realize that wasn't his real hair when he was making his entrance. So when he pulled that shit off and it was just a fucking wig, because I didn't know who Dustin Rhodes was. I wasn't really that familiar with it. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And then, he had basically his dick just bulging out the entire time. That's pretty scary if you're a youngster. Just a fucking dude with his bulge,
No, I think of overall characters, he did the most with that character, and he made it iconic. So yeah, good shit, pal. For
Good shit,
Goldust.
pal.
We're going on the other end of the spectrum with Dustin Rhodes, though. Nick's feeling himself up. This is what you get on YouTube, folks. Get to see stuff
bro.
like that.
That's why all 93 of you who tuned in last week on the video option, good on you, man.
Good on you. We need more.
Brother.
Keep subscribing. We're at 546 right now, Nick. We're getting
546. Yep, we're almost Mr. Beast.
Almost. We're getting there. Okay, so we're going on the other end of the spectrum. At one point, Goldust left WWF and he went to WCW, and they made him 7. If you remember the vignettes, he kind of came off with a child molester vibe. I don't know what this
didn't
guy
like
was
it.
done. Levitated to the ring, people laughing at it. He didn't like it. He dropped it and he buried it pretty quickly. I think this is a resounding, and I think Dustin would agree.
I wouldn't disrespect.
Gimmick.
I wouldn't disrespect Dustin Rhodes. I wouldn't disrespect him by putting it anywhere else but the drizzling shits. That guy deserves so much more. He should have been fucking world champion.
He should have. So yeah, that gimmick was absolutely the drizzling shits. Moving on from a famous family of wrestling, the Vachons, Luna Vachon. Luna Vachon, she did a great job with it as having a creepy gimmick. And I think she's pretty much remembered. She's revered in women's wrestling, one of the best women's wrestlers of all time, especially in a time where women's wrestling wasn't put on a pedestal. So I don't know. I think Luna Vachon, as remembered, I'd put her mid card.
I put her mid card. She's the only female that's ever actually scared me, and as a pro wrestling gimmick. Like I believed every single second of what she was doing, and also like when she got her boobs done, like that was just a crazy transformation.
There we go.
Like they just went 0 to fucking 60, like uncrazy.
Like when Stephanie McMahon did them.
Like they
whoa.
But Luna's was even more extreme.
Of course.
Like,
yep.
Anyway, we can move on to the next one. Married man, father of 2.
All right, the big man. We're going with who he's also known as Big Daddy V, also known as Mabel. But we're going with this character as Viscera from the Ministry of Darkness. Viscera. Where would you put Big V?
I put Big V in the pre-show.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, he was just another guy in a stable at this point.
And we already had him as Mabel. And
yeah,
so it's kind of like,
it was like how I know who you are. Like, if this was maybe his first character, maybe I would think differently. But you were man on a mission.
Exactly. He was part of that stable. Which honestly, he was King of the Ring too, as Mabel. So he had
King Mabel was one of the best.
Technically, he had a better gimmick than this.
King Mabel, they had all those fucking poor ass guys, those jack bodies, had to carry his
ass around.
I
think pre-show's good. I mean, he was like you said,
fine. We're talking about the gimmicks here. We're not talking like
just another guy in a stable. Of a stable of like 15 guys. All right, we're coming towards the end, but next, an interesting character and one of the best storylines of all time. In the ECW, Raven. So Raven, obviously, perfect time for the gimmick he had. He had the grunge gimmick. He had like the outcast type gimmick, and he was the perfect antithesis of Tommy Dreamer, who had the all-American everyman type gimmick, the jock gimmick, kind of ish, if you want to call it a jock gimmick. But he had if you don't know, folks, the storyline was that Beulah McGillicuddy was involved, and Raven was in love with her. They were at summer camp, but Tommy stole her from Raven. They were both in love with her, and that was the whole gimmick. And Raven always hated Tommy Dreamer for that reason. So he was that social outcast type guy. So he was kind of creepy. Where would you put Raven?
I fucking love Raven. I think it's a main event.
I think so too.
I think it's a main event character. I think the work that he did as Raven, like taking one of the first times, like taking a love story and making and then the longevity behind it just so fucking believable. Plus the grunge. You know,
grunge,
like
perfect time for the gimmick.
what kid doesn't dress up as a punk rocker?
Yep.
You know, when they're young.
Exactly.
Like
And
my brother did.
He sat in the corner too when he'd come to the ring. He cut his promos sitting in the corner, slumped over. He lived that gimmick perfectly. Like, so I mean, just one of the all-time great gimmicks.
They still will bring that. Like, that's still a rivalry. Like, that's how crazy it is. Like Tommy Dreamer and Raven. Like,
one of the best rivalries in pro wrestling.
The end of time. That
which is crazy because
rivalry.
it was in ECW, right? It wasn't in WWE or WCW.
But when you have guys that are that committed, and Tommy Dreamer
Exactly.
is the perfect person to have on the other end of that, because he's another guy that just like will never stop working. Like, it's just like if you have two guys that just will never stop working, it's like why can't a story just go on forever if it's that good? And it's
Absolutely.
and it's the most simple story that you could ever tell.
Yep.
The
So
most
main
simple
event
story.
here for Raven. Okay. All right. It's time. We're going with Vader at the next one. And Vader, again, perfect timing for Vader when he came out. Big guy, monster, the mastodon, Vader. You could be scared as a kid, or you could be amazed and love the guy. It would go one or two ways. So, as a gimmick for Vader, I think I would say he's teetering mid-card main event for me. I think
I'll put him in the mid card just because I don't know how much of a
scare.
It doesn't really scare me. It's more just like this guy's just like a fucking bruiser. Like, he's just like a
I think so
fucking
too.
beast.
That's a good point.
You
He wasn't
know?
super scary, but I mean,
But he did have a cool mask. He did have a
the
cool mask.
the
That'll get
mastodon.
you.
Yep.
If you look at what we got going on here, there's not many people that, if you have a mask or something over your face, you got a good shot at going up on tiers.
You do. As we see here, you're at least gonna besides
Outside of the Yeti.
Yeti and Shockmaster. Oh
Yeah.
Black Blood is all the way down there.
We're not going to talk about Black Blood. Don't know who he is. He fucking sucks.
All right, Kamala. We're going last three. We got Kamala here. Kamala, the Ugandan giant. Actually, the guy who first body slammed Andre the Giant, but they don't want you to know that.
No.
He did body slam him. But Kamala, a gimmick that people will always remember. And I mean, he worked against some of the top guys at the time. He worked against Hogan. Where would you put Kamala? Kamala's a tough one.
I mean, he's not main event.
No, I don't think I could put Kamala lower than mid card though. I think just because
He's just too much of an iconic looking character.
Will we put him
And I-
Shockmaster tier?
Yeah, let's throw him Shockmaster because I don't want to insult him by putting him pre-show. I don't want to put him mid-card because I don't think he's a Halloween gimmick. He's just an iconic gimmick that you just you say Kamala, you're not thinking about the vice president. You know what I'm saying?
No,
You're thinking about the Ugandan giant.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So some people that love WCW cruiserweights, La Parka.
My fucking dude, yo.
Swinging the chairs.
I love La Parka. WCW NWO Revenge video game, I believe it was. I was always La Parka. I won so many fucking battle royals as this guy, it would make your head spin. He took the greatest spear from Goldberg. It's one of the greatest spots. I fucking love La Parka. The first chairman he did the stupid dance, the great dance. Then he would take the chair and play the guitar on it. It was all awesome. Don't know how scary it was, but he was fucking awesome. Ben, I'll just let you rank him. I don't really give a shit where he goes.
All right,
I
La
just wanna say
Parka.
he's
I mean,
awesome.
we can't cloud our judgment with how much we loved him as a wrestler. I think La Parka, when we're talking like scary gimmick, I mean, he had the mask. I think where we're putting people with masks, I think we got to put La Parka at least mid card. I think we'll put him.
Yeah,
we'll throw him in the mid card here. And finally,
looks like Skeletor. Too.
He does. He
Skeletor.
does. It's Skeletor. Yeah, exactly. And finally, folks, you got to look this guy up. I found him today. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best wrestling gimmicks of all time. Look him up. A Japanese pro wrestler. This gimmick was thought up by a second grader, and it makes sense. Ken the Box. Look up Ken the Box.
I'll ask you a question, Ben. Make it make sense. Why make it make sense?
For overall pop value of Ken the Box, he would be good shit, pal. But I think we know where he's going because we have integrity here on the podcast. We're credentialed journalists. Ken the Box is leading the drizzle and shits.
He's leading the drizzle and shits. I don't know who he is. Ben said look him up, and I implore you, man, that should be the last time you ever look this guy up.
Ken the Box.
Ken the
All
Box
right,
sucks.
folks. We
This is
have
your list.
finished our list of the horror movie character, the best horror characters in pro wrestling history. We're going to have this graphic up. You're going to see it in all of its glory. Love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear what you think. There's some ones on here that you might disagree with us, and you might blackball us from wrestling because of who we ranked here. But we think it's a pretty good. I think it's a pretty good list. I think it makes sense.
I think it's a good list. I think it makes sense. Happy Halloween to everyone out there. I'm gonna take a little screenshot of this just in case we lose it, Ben. And then this whole thing goes to shit, which it won't because I'm a fantastic editor. But happy Halloween, everyone. This is the list. I think it's a damn good list. I think we did everyone right by their respective gimmicks, by how much.
Let us know if we missed anybody. Let us.
If we miss anyone, you let us know. And we're not going to redo it, but
No,
just let
of
us
course
know.
not.
That'd be great.
Of course not. Give us that engagement. All right, Nick. I think we'll finish it off by getting some shit in, right?
Yep, get your shit in, Ben. What do you got
Get
for
your
us?
shit
coming
in.
up?
Okay. Well, first thing I want to do, folks, we still got merch available. A lot of people bought it over the weekend. Thank you to everyone that bought some merch over the weekend or have bought merch. Giving shout outs to people on Twitter like Stephen Baird. Or Chris Baird, I'm sorry, Stephen Brandt just bought 2 shirts. Sarah, one of our favorite followers, of course.
She had the best Halloween gimmick.
She had the best Halloween costume, dressing up as Nick. Jason Tran, thank you again for buying the hat. We gotta give love to my man in Chicago. God, why am I blanking on his name? Please help me. Jim, I'm sorry, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Peter, for buying the shirt. We appreciate all you guys. Some OG fans right there, but we want more of you. Buy the shirt, beautiful shirt, 60/40 cotton poly blend. You got the front and you got the back of the shirt right here. The logo, the slogan, where you can find us on all socials. Buy the shirt. And of course you can find me at Big Trouble BB on all social media platforms. Nick.
Yep, you can follow me at Nicky the Good on Twitter, on TikTok. You can follow us at Meatpop the Sprex everywhere. Please make sure you subscribe. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's the current goal that we got right now. We'd appreciate you guys just clicking the YouTube just to give us a little view love there. Make sure you listen on audio. We're available on Apple and Spotify. Pretty much everywhere you can get your podcast. You can check out the Meatpop Express. I'm going to try and get some indie events coming up. I know a few guys I think there's a few local shows coming into town maybe later in the year. So we're going to try and do that, get some interviews, do what we do best, which is, that's a big burp, is get on the ground, do some interviews, and make fans and marks look pretty dumb. But that's what we're going to look at do. So, yeah. And that's it. Ben, you got anything else to say?
Keep it positive, keep it trucking, and keep the shades on because the sun never sets on a cool guy.
Later, Marks.